Hello, everybody, and welcome to Disabilities Redefined with Dr. Wagner. We have changed the name of the show, however, everything else stays the same. We still have the most amazing guest, and we still have a very entertaining show for you, our viewers, who, by the way, are very, very important. So thank you for your emails, your text, your Instagram post. We love it. Please keep it coming, and we're always glad to hear from you. Tonight, however, we have three CUNY superstars: Dalton Whiteside, Harris Melendez, and Leonard Blades. First of all, we want to speak with Dalton. Dalton is studying to be an architect at City College, and he recently received the very prestigious President's Leadership Scholarship. I was very happy to speak with Dalton. This was our second time we had him on the show, but it's the first time the show is making the YouTube channel. So please check it out after you see it on the television. It'll then go to our YouTube channel. Check it out there. But Dalton is full of life. He's got a great personality. He's obviously very, very intelligent. And I learned so much about this young man who is doing so much at City College.
Yeah, Boy Scouts was really an adventure. I really enjoyed it. I started in the Scouts when I believe I was living in Atlanta, and then I moved to Tennessee, and then I moved to a different town in Tennessee, so I moved like 3 times. But throughout the experiences, I mean, we got to build a trebuchet, which is like a catapult. We went on boating trips, canoeing, camping, you know, got to explore the wilderness in a variety of ways. And of course, there's the merit badges, but I just sort of, I wanted to be in it for the love of the experience of the outdoors, not so much for the efforts of trying to like get all the badges to make a certain, you know, rank.
Right.
So
very good point. Then we're going to get back to that in a minute, but that brings us to, because you're very involved at City College.
yes.
More so within the School of Architecture, which is a very esteemed school. It's one of the better ones in the country, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a wonderful school.
Yes, it really is. Yeah. But in high school, most high schools that I'm sure maybe a few, but most of them don't offer, you know, architectural studies. Or were you in any clubs or groups or sports, anything like that in high school, or were you just more studious? Or what was the teenage Dalton like?
Well, I used to ride my bike to middle school and high school all the time. I just loved riding from home to school and back. And within school, you know, I sort of stuck to the studies, and then I was involved in the recycling club and also the Habitat for Humanities club.
Yes.
And within that, we actually got to learn how to build little wooden models and, you know, apply the pressure to them, see how much pressure they could withstand. So that sort of gave me a little bit of experience in the architectural field.
Well, in both of those answers, whether you realize it or not, you said build something.
Oh, certainly, right.
in Boy Scouts as well as in high school, you love building things, which brings us to what you do right now, and you are thriving at it, architecture. When did you first realize you were so interested in? Was there a building you saw? Was there a photograph of
I grew up with a lot of Legos. My mom I was just obsessed with them. And I built tons of Lego sets, these big palaces and all kinds of structures. And my mom said, you know, you're going to be an architect. I was a little nervous because, you know, just the word was like, I don't know about that one. But we ended up traveling to Europe when I was 10 years old. We went to France, Italy, Ireland. France, Italy, Ireland. Later on, we went to Spain and Morocco, which was when I was like 16. But that experience when I was 10 was really an amazing way for me to really see other cultures, the way, you know, architecture has developed over time. We saw the Eiffel Tower in person, went up to the top of it, and it was just an amazing experience. So I think that definitely helped.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't think it helped. It probably just reassured you that it was the right thing. Right. When I was doing my homework on you, however, the only thing that I found or read or that anybody would tell me that you did like outside of architecture or building things was jazz.
Yeah, I love early jazz. And I've listened to a lot of Cab Calloway and of course Al Bowley and, you know, Anna Tanshaw, you know, the classics. And it's really pleasant to listen to. It's
Where do you go? You enjoy jazz here, the culture of jazz in New York? I mean, do you get to go to the underground jazz clubs in Harlem, or do you?
Yeah, unfortunately not. As much as I really would love to, I find that being in college, there's constantly things to do, places to go, you know, tons of homework. So I find myself just kind of cloistered within City College, and then I just kind of go from home to the college and so on and so forth.
Well, when I was out there that time that you took me and your counselor, Patricia Bianchi, my good friend Patricia Bianchi, she's the one who set this all up.
Right.
There was something I was very interested in. I don't. What are they called? The statues, the little faces, the grotesque. Say it, grotesque. Yeah.
Right.
I remember I asked you earlier because you said that these grotesque, and I have a feeling now we will probably show the footage of all of these little wonderful little man figures or whatever they call them.
Right.
But you said that if people spotted one, they would give City College a call, and I thought it was a legitimate answer. But I mean, I kind of like took me to a Ghostbusters kind of scenario. Like if somebody sees a grotesque out there in the city, who you gonna? I mean, City College. But what do they do? What do you do? You just go and take him back, or do you? How do you, like, what happens when someone spots a grotesque in New York?
Well, there's a lot of grotesques in New York and on a lot of buildings, and some of them even may look similar to the ones on City College.
Well, you had a lot of them out there that day.
Well, there's exactly 538 on the South Campus lawn as of, maybe a month ago. They've since moved them around, but the sculptor that did those was Carl Bitter, and he did many other sculptures in New York City. I will say the college reached a point where it just became too confusing and sort of lost track of where they all were. So they hired me to go around and catalog all these sculptures, and I would take photos and document their dimensions, and that was quite a long process, but very fulfilling.
Well, it was great, and you were very passionate about it, and again, it was fun. It was just, they were very interesting. They looked very interesting to me, and I think most people probably would probably find them very interesting. But they did have somewhat of a, somewhat of a medieval kind of spooky quality about it. You could see somebody turning that into some horror flick kind of thing.
I mean, and frankly, people go after them for all kinds of reasons. Some people want them for their dorm rooms and for their classrooms and such. But really, I mean, they are property of the college, and if anyone does find one, they really should contact the college because it's their rightful home, and they're part of the historic architectural heritage of New York City as a whole.
Now, you are you are one of Miss Bianchi's students at the Center for Students with Disabilities, and you are autistic.
Yes.
When did you and your family realize you were autistic?
So that came around when I was about 15. My mother knew a doctor that had another patient with the same condition, Asperger's syndrome, which is a form of autism. And he said, Dalton's displaying some similar characteristics. Maybe you can have him come in, we'll do some tests. So I was diagnosed when I was 15 with autism, Asperger's, and I have a very minor case of it. But it really actually helped to have that to be aware that I had that, because before that point I had a lot of trouble doing my homework in a timely fashion, and getting through just everyday work without someone to ask questions to. I had always tons of questions. I'll say in high school, middle school, I had, maybe 2 or 3 teachers that were just extremely helpful and sympathetic to what I was going through. And they were always just there to help, and I still remember them for that, and I really appreciate that. In New York City, though, there's, of course, a much more broad range of people that understand people's situations. They're accepting, and they're willing to listen. Yeah,
the exposure here is amazing.
Right.
It really is. Exposure is great. And again, coming from a very small place in Tennessee, where you might not have people who you can identify with. You have a very strong identity as a future architect.
Yes.
And of course, being out there at City College is great, because I would probably be willing to say most people that you speak to are somehow involved with architecture, and you see yourself in them, and vice versa. And that builds a very strong identity, which then builds to confidence and articulation.
I want to leave sort of a legacy, something where people that go to the college after I've left can pick up off of what I've learned. They can quickly get sort of the update, because a lot of the stuff that I've learned and come across, when I came here to the college, there just was no records on it. There's no information on it. I had to do a lot of digging. So I just want to pass that on. And originally I was thinking, I'll write a book, but I started writing that and it just got very long, very complicated, and I thought, I'm more of a visual person anyway. Maybe I should just do a documentary. And so this is incorporating the history of City College, the Hebrew Orphan Asylum, the Episcopal Protestant Orphan Asylum, and Manhattanville College of the Sacred Heart. All of these institutions existed just neighboring each other. So you had these different religions, you had these different ethnic groups, and the college, of course, is something that's constantly circulating. You have people coming and going, which makes it a really fascinating social study within the city of New York. So I'm arranging interviews to go out and speak with people who are affiliated with these institutions in the early years, and to get their story. It's just been an amazing process.
And what are you using this camp? Are you using City College? How are you getting the film, the equipment, and what are you doing? Yeah.
So it's very fortunate that in the architecture school we have a lot of students that are they've got some very fancy equipment, or they've kind of got their niche things that they're really good at. And I have two friends that have they have like a drone, one of those things you can fly up and get aerial shots. And they've got some fancy camera equipment, and they said, we'd love to help you on this. And so we're kind of working together. We're working with $0, and we're trying to squeeze it in between our class schedule. So once it's done, it should be good.
That is, I think that sounds great. And well, all the best to it.
Thank you.
Best to you on it, I should say. Yes, I'm excited. It sounds like a very good project going on there.
Yeah.
Okay, so. What can I say, Dalton? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say in closing? Anything else you'd like to add?
Well, I would say, if you have a disability of, Asperger's, of any kind of autism, that's where, of course, that I have experience in, the best thing to do is really to talk to people, and even if it's your parents. Often parents are most understanding, and they can give you the means to which you can start to reach out to others. My mother was, of course, very instrumental in that process, and she's very supportive. I mean, she's really raised me from, just the bottom up. And my mother's an artist, and
Right.
struggled throughout my whole childhood, and she's gotten me into college, and things are just really going well. So I can't thank her enough for that. Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you sharing that with us, and your mother's done a great job. She should be very, very, very proud of you, as I'm sure she is.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think you're great, and I know you're going to do very well with whatever you do. But I'm very excited about this film project coming up.
Well, thanks.
And yeah, I mean, who knows, Dalton? Would you do a reality show?
Oh, I don't know about that. Maybe a little bit in the future.
Thank you, Dalton. All the best to you. You're a very special young man, and I wish you only the best. Now, Harris Melendez and Leonard Blades. I found Harris Melendez to be very smart, very pretty, and very, very articulate. She is the founder of the Melendez Media Group and a very well-known social media activist here in New York City. She is also an alumnus of CUNY.
My background is in workforce development, youth development, with a specialization in preventive services.
Excellent.
So I work with foster care kids, that's a population that I simply adore. So that's one of the best experiences I've had.
Okay, but now, do you consider yourself to have a switch in your career, or did you just think it's just keeping the theme but moving in a different area?
That's an excellent question. So I am shifting careers. I'm still focused on social impact and making a difference, but it's a little different because it's the sector that I'm working on is different.
Okay. Now, what was the 2016 Human Rights Campaign for All Disability in the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals?
Yes. So at that time, I launched my multimedia and social impact consultancy, which is Melendez Media Group. And our inaugural event was in honor of the 10th anniversary for CRPD, which is the Convention of Disability Rights. And it was a great opportunity to discuss the achievements and the accomplishments. I mean, it's the 10th anniversary.
Right.
And what we can do as global citizens and activists on just generating awareness. And the United States still has not ratified the treaty, so it would be fantastic if we could start having those conversations again and re-engage the community, because it's important.
I think it is very important, but you just used the word engagement. I love that word. And you actually have done a lot of work for a lot of populations within social media. When I was doing my homework on you, you've done Disability Insurance Awareness Month. You did a great thing with social media during that time. LGBTQ Pride Month, Women's History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and Black History Month. All of which you've been very prominent with social media. What is this with, I mean, social media, you know, there's a big question now about social media. You know, is it positive, is it negative? What is your opinion on all that?
I think social media can be used for good and for generating awareness about issues that we care about. I specifically focus on the impact that social media can have, especially when it comes to user-generated content and having conversations and creating awareness about things that ordinarily perhaps the media may not be covering, but people who are active and care about certain issues are able to start a conversation and engage diverse communities. And I firmly am, I love social media. I firmly believe it's a wonderful platform.
Now, in 2016, you formed the Melendez Media Group. Yeah, now tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So we are a multimedia and social impact consultancy. We specifically focus on working on projects that have a significant impact on the community. And it's really exciting because this is something that we've always been wanting to do. So what we do is that we do events. We also do digital media, social media management and provide communication strategies for organizations that are interested in amplifying their impact and amplifying their message across diverse audiences.
Well, you have a lot of projects coming up. Yeah, quite a few. I don't even what are your projects? Yeah, tell us a little bit about these various projects, all of which are wonderful, by the way. But yeah, I'll let you take the floor on that one.
Sure, thank you so much. So I have the good fortune of volunteering for an amazing organization. It's called the United Nations Association. I am part of the Northern New Jersey chapter, and collectively, we're embarking on a really amazing passion project. We're doing a web series on, it's going to be called Building a Better World.
Right.
And it's engaging people in having conversations about global issues in a way that we just want to have a conversation. Remove the politics, remove all that away, put that aside and talk about these issues because it affects all of us. For instance, when it comes to climate change, the refugee crisis, and we all have the opportunity to make a significant impact, even if it's a small action that we do. So it's really exciting. So that's one of the projects. I personally am working on other passion projects. We are recently launching a couple of brands. One of them is the Chic of All Trades, which is a women's empowerment network for multi-passionate women who are interested in navigating the gig economy. So it's very exciting. And then I'm also, later on in the year, I'm working on a children's book series. It's a multicultural and inclusive children's media platform. It's really exciting stuff.
Thank you, Harris, and all the best to you. I really enjoyed having you on the show, and you are always welcome. Now, Leonard Blades. You know, what can we say about Leonard except we love him? He is a CUNY graduate student at the School of Professional Studies, and he was just recently awarded the very prestigious Donald and Mary Ellen Pasatino Scholarship for Students with Disabilities. For our interview, Leonard spoke of stigma. He has had to deal with stigma his entire life and how he feels people who give in to stigma are actually not being fair to themselves. And that is a very, very strong message.
For me personally, I've lived with the stigma, being in a wheelchair, that I can't do anything for myself. that's the stigma that I've lived with, growing up. That because I'm in a wheelchair, what can he do? And it really gets frustrating, at times. And well, at least when I was younger, I was frustrated with it. I was fed up. But no, I mean, as I got older, I realized, it's, you're not gonna like how everybody may, their opinion or how they may view you, but you just gotta, well, roll with the punches.
Right.
No pun intended. So,
You're absolutely right. Well, I don't know about rolling with the punches or not. Leonard, listen, you've been very successful in college. We do want to state that you are a graduate student at the School of Professional Studies. You have a very good GPA, which is what?
It's currently at a 4.0.
4.0. So I don't think you've really rolled with the punches. I think you've given a few punches along the way. So in that respect,
that.
yes,
Thank
absolutely. Now, in your paper, you speak about the social model of disability.
Yes.
Yes. Now, what is this model?
So, according to the social model of disability, society is what restricts people with disabilities from being fully inclusive. Like an example would be like barriers. Like in my case, if I went somewhere and I realized, oh, there's no accessible ramp. There's only steps. That's an example of society, preventing me from being fully inclusive, and also not just examples like that, but also people. Again, people necessarily, they may not have the openness that us people with disabilities may like sometimes, and that may prevent us.
Well, you gave an example in the paper.
Yeah,
I think you were at the library, and there were you and a good friend of yours, and you asked somebody, you were helping your friend out, and or something happened, and immediately the person thought it was you who needed. Tell us that story quickly.
So, really briefly, I was teaching a friend of mine. I was teaching him how to use, navigating how to use CUNY First, because I was on the CUNY First marketing team, and we were just helping out with the implementation of it into Brooklyn College.
Yeah, for those people who don't know, let's say what CUNY First is.
Well, CUNY First is basically the system that all students who, throughout CUNY, no matter what school you go to, you're going to be using CUNY First in regards to like registering for classes and stuff like that. And I was showing my friend, how to navigate it, like where to go for this and for that. And there was a guy who was sitting next to us who, like you said, he asked me, he just started talking to us, and us being the polite people we are, we politely engaged for a bit, and then he asked, what's your major? And I said psychology. But then he said, wait, you're a psychology major, but yet you don't understand how to navigate that? And I said, oh no, I'm helping him. And
good for you, right?
His eyes just bulged open, like, wait, you're helping him, he's not helping you? So, and my friend, Mike, I didn't even have to say anything, because he already knew where he was going with that. And he said, you know what, man, that's not cool, for him to make the assumption that because I'm in the chair, I'm automatically the one who needs help. So it's situations like that where, where I was talking about the open-mindedness, you know. And
what do we think would be the best bit of advice that we could leave the show with, people watching the show, as far as what we can do to combat stigma within the disabled population, or about the disabled population?
Like I said, I'm a firm believer in ladies first.
Well, thank you again. I'm a firm believer that with every action that we take, we are representing the best version of ourselves and our communities. So as it relates to stigma, I always approach it as I will continuously put my best foot forward. And when I ever do encounter those experiences that are challenging, I don't judge. I don't rush to lead with a label. I lead with my passions, my integrity, my character, my skills. And I am a firm believer that people generally want to learn and want to know a little bit more about you. So I lead with who I am. And I do think that the best way to combat certain preconceived notions about communities is just having a conversation.
Yes.
You know, honestly, as she was talking, there was a quote that just jumped in my head that I actually came across this past semester as I was working on an assignment. It goes, "There's no greater disability in society than the inability to see a person as more." And when I read that, I just thought, wow, and it's so true. And you know, and I realized, you know, it doesn't just apply to, you know, people with disabilities. It's so much more. It applies to so much more, you know, because as we were talking about it earlier on, actually, you know, like in the professional, you know, aspect of it, like in regards to employers, you know, the inability to see a person as more, regardless of whether or not they have a disability that's visible or hidden in some respect, the inability to, you know, to give them a chance, you know, you could be missing out on someone who has amazing qualities that can bring so much, you know, to, you know, to your respective company. And, you know, in the personal aspect of it, I mean, if you close yourself off, if you don't give people a chance, you know, the inability to see someone as more than their disability, you're missing out on some great people to meet, you know, and making friends, you know.
So thank you, Dalton, thank you, Harris, and thank you, Leonard. You're all very special, and I'll be in touch very, very soon.